One of my favorite quotes by Bell Hooks, she says, "Justice demands integrity. It is to have a moral universe, to not only know what is right or wrong, but to put things into perspective, to weigh things. Justice is different from violence and retribution. It requires complex accounting." So, this next section is about the complex accounting that it takes to understand the ways in which marginalized people have not benefited in society and to understand the ways in which we must act to restore justice. Social justice is wildly active. A lot of people think that it's a hashtag, it's a black square on Instagram. It's a lot more than that. It's going to be require being uncomfortable. And so, we're going to talk about the ways in which we would want to learn to be uncomfortable. But I do want to talk about earned privilege versus unearned privilege because when this was brought to my attention, it completely changed the way that I understood privilege. So let's talk about earned privilege. Earned privilege are the things that you work for. Things like your college degree usually is considered earned privilege. If you work really hard and you start a business and you are up 12 hours, that's a privilege that you earn when you grow that business. Those are all things that people usually are very protective of. Our earned privileges. We say, I worked hard for this. I should have it. And so we'll talk about, yes, you did work hard for it, but it still functions as privilege. And then there's unearned privilege, the things that you don't have to do much for. Things like inheritances, the skin, you can't do anything about the skin that you were born in. None of us can. Our gender representation, we can change that. We can identify differently, but usually there's a privilege with identifying as cisgender, right? So all of these are things that we don't have to work for. They're handed to us, and sometimes the deck is dealt in our favor, and that's a privilege that we have. And true social justice risks being uncomfortable and pushes us towards equitable distribution. True social justice places others' needs on the same playing field as our own. So if we talk as we talk about privilege, we have to understand again, social justice is going to require us to be uncomfortable. That means that you may have to risk some of those privileges in that conversation as we work towards a better good. So I give you all a writing prompt. You don't have to write it right now. I'm going to share with you my response to this prompt. But this prompt asks, what social justices are you most angry about? I encourage you to write a poem or short commentary that includes possible solutions to the issue. I want you all to think about this at home. Again, you don't have to write it right now, but I want you to think about it. What social injustice makes you most angry? Is it the education gap? Is it the wealth gap? What of those things are waking you up every morning? Is it, food insecurity? Whatever that is, we also want to be thinking about possible solutions to the problem. I gave a list of possible solutions, how we can redistribute our wealth. So I want to hear from you, or I want you to at least write and get to thinking about the world that you want to see.
I truly appreciate the time that you have come to us by way of Nomos and applaud the student leadership for having you here with us. Even though the timing certainly should have been better, but I also believe that serendipity had it that you are with us at this most awful of times because you are a spark of light amidst a
Thank
very
you.
dark moment in our state. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for having me. There's no place I'd rather be than talking to the people who live, right in the center of where it's happening, because you are the ones who can practice justice, who can push us towards a greater humanity and demand more. And so I hope that wherever you are, you do rest, but also work and demand more and better.
Dear Darla, I hate your stinking guts. You make me vomit. You're a scum between my toes. Love, Whoa. Well, yeah, but was she upset?
Yeah, was she upset? I'd say so. I would have been a little upset if somebody had told me that they hated my stinking guts. Somebody I saw in the chat said that this is actually the new Little Rascals. Yes, in theory, it is. There was an older Little Rascals, even though this one is probably 20, almost 30 years old. So shout out to you. I feel, not as ancient anymore. But those are essentially the emotions we're going to talk about. Those moments where you want to say to somebody how much you hate their stinking guts, all of those things you get to say today. You can be honest without being brutal. I do ask that you tell the story the way that you see it, and you can be funny without being harmful. Essentially, what we want to do is give our ego time to just say and get it all out. But we also want to recognize that whoever the subject of our poem is also sharing our experiences. So again, you can be humorous, but try not to be harmful. I could be sad, I could be scared, I could be joyful. Powerful wasn't even a thing that I really understood until I was older. And so when I've encountered this emotion wheel, I realized how much language there is to describe how I feel. And so for these poems, we're going to start from mad, but you see there's some emotions that branch off from there, like hurt, like hostile, like angry, selfish, hateful, even critical, skeptical, irritated, jealous, frustrated, sarcastic, distant. You get to be all of those things today and to express all of those things in your poems. Again, the rest of the wheel is also available for you, but petty poems are going to focus on those sort of red and pink emotions. Next up to the mic, please give it up for Jared.
Okay. All right. When I see you, it makes me wonder, how do you get your shirt over your head? What makes you think you're so cool looking because your hair wafts all the way down to the middle region of your neck? Well, I'm still cool. With or without that extended Paul Bunyan look, I'm still cool. Because I know there's nothing alive and growing in my lower chin area. And I can get my shirt over my head and on my body without snagging. So you go on with your bad self, and I'll go on with my still hairless, chinned, cool self. Like Blackstreet said, we out.
I love it.
And that poem is an homage to my oldest son. He has the ability to grow this long goatee, and it is so extended and so long and so widespread that it makes me think he's just flaunting. So that's my pettiness towards my oldest son.
Good for you. That was terrific. That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Jared. We got a lot of love in the reactions, a lot of love in the comments.
Tonight's event, Ethics and Courage for Artists, is being sponsored by Intercultural Student Engagement and the Center for Student Involvement. And so Ashlee Haze is a poet and spoken word artist from Atlanta by way of Chicago. She recently appeared on NPR's Tiny Desk series alongside Queen and Slim composer Blood Orange. Ashlee is the host of Moderne Philosophy, an educational podcast for creatives. Her sophomore book, Smoke, was released on April 20th, 2020. And so with that, I'd like to hand things over to Ashlee.
Thank you so much, Erica. Hello, Rhode Island School of Design. It is so nice to spend the evening with you all. You all are a good-looking crowd of folks. Makes me wish I was in New England with you all. But we are here, and I'm in Atlanta. But tonight we're going to talk about one of my favorite things to teach, which is courage and ethics for artists. We're going to talk about how to show up authentically in our work, how to make the brave decisions, how to choose courage and take risks. We're also going to talk about ethics. What is the role of art in society? What does it mean for the big picture? I did a lot of learning and studying in my philosophy about rejection and about why it meant so much to people and why it hurt so much when it happened. And our human mind is scientifically wired to be accepted for social reasons. Historically, we had to be accepted for survival. We needed to find a pack that we could fit in with and move along with. But now things have changed and we have telephones and the internet and we can stay connected, and rejection doesn't have to mean what it used to mean. It used to mean that you may not survive. Now rejection just means that you may cry a little bit, which is okay. It may mean that you're going to be a little down, that you may feel defeated. However, get back into it. That rejection, it's just a moment, and those moments pass. But fear keeps us safe and accepted. Fear is a protective measure from us emotionally and physically. Fear keeps us from going into a hot fire, jumping over a cliff. It keeps us from dealing with people who we know have a history of being mean. But you don't need fear as much when you know how to heal and when you know how to get to safety. And so I think the goal is to remain brave in our work. That means take that risk being hurt, risk feeling vulnerable, and continue to remain brave and not necessarily safe, because safety is easy. It's easy to just sit in the corner. It's easy to just make a carbon copy of the song that's on the radio so you can pay the rent. But it is not necessarily what's going to push us further into courage.
What would you say to a young artist who has been knocked down multiple times, and says, their parents say you can't make a living doing this, and the faculty says you're not good enough to do this? How do you get them to sort of engage in that courageous part that you were speaking to?
So I believe in repetition makes the master. So I repeat a lot to my students, and I say, I once say, give yourself permission to feel what you feel. A lot of times what happens is that we don't get ourselves permissions to cry at night after we don't get the audition. I remember I went to acting school and we worked towards a big audition and nobody picked my headshot. And I gave myself permission to cry in that car. And because I cried in the car on the way home, and because I cried that night, I was able to get back up in the morning and get back to the lines, because I was able to not release that emotion. I think we don't talk enough about artists' emotional health and giving ourselves permission to feel defeated, to feel jealousy. Because what we'll find is that once we feel it, and even just acknowledging grief, there's a certain grief that I have when my work isn't accepted, but give myself permission to feel that grief and to rest and to say, you know what, maybe I need to take a break. And then you will be so surprised that when it comes around, when the competition comes around again, you say, I have the energy to try it again because I felt what I needed to feel. I've given myself compassion. We have to teach self-compassion and self-forgiveness. So that's what I would say. I would say, emphasize feeling the emotions that are associated with rejection, but also emphasize rejuvenation and to realign with the mission. And you may find the mission changes. I thought I was going to be a dancer for a long time. Then I 2 knee injuries and a knee surgery later, I realized that wasn't really feasible. But I still chose an artistic life. I chose, a different art for whatever the reason may be. But always, always just keep a focus on that goal. And if your goal is to impact change, you absolutely can't make that impact if you're not active. If you're not in the game, you absolutely can't put points on the board, is my theory. So just try. I always, remind them that their work is valuable regardless. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it sucks. Yes, 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 absolutely. So take a break. Go to a retreat. I did a lot of writing retreats to learn how to become a better writer. So all of those are things I think that students could take with them.